In 1971, my life in a small Hmong village in Laos changed forever. I'd always loved singing, but it wasn't until I sang at the village festival that things took a dark turn. My voice caught the ears of everyone around, and suddenly, I was the talk of the town. People would come from neighboring villages just to hear me sing. But with this newfound fame came something much darker than I could have ever imagined. It started subtly at first. I would catch glimpses of a figure in traditional Hmong clothing following me wherever I went. At first I thought it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. The figure would be there, lingering at the edge of my vision, disappearing when I turned to look directly. I could never make out the details of their face, only the dark, empty eyes that seemed to follow me relentlessly. As the days passed, the figure became more persistent. It was always there, lurking in the shadows of the village. My parents and friends noticed my growing unease, but they dismissed it as stress from my newfound fame. The figure, however, was no ordinary shadow. It had an otherworldly presence that made my skin crawl. The mayor, impressed by my singing, invited me to perform on the stage at the annual village celebration. The whole village gathered for the event, and I was honored to sing in front of everyone. As I stood on the stage, I could feel the weight of many eyes on me, but there was one pair of eyes in particular that sent chills down my spine. From a distance, I saw a figure with a twisted, horrifying face. Its features were contorted into a grotesque mockery of a smile, and its eyes were hollow, staring straight at me. The figure was shrouded in darkness, but its presence was unmistakable. My voice faltered for a moment, but I pushed through, trying to ignore the terror creeping over me. The more I sang, the more intense the feeling of dread became. I felt as though an invisible hand was tightening around my throat, squeezing the life out of me. The twisted face remained in the crowd, always watching, always waiting. The performance was a blur, and I felt a growing weakness in my body, as though my very essence was being drained. When I finally finished and left the stage, I collapsed. My body was shaking uncontrollably, and I could barely stand. The villagers rushed to my side, but I could only see the figure's twisted face in my mind. That night, I was bedridden with a fever that raged uncontrollably. I could feel something malevolent hovering around me, and I knew it was not just a sickness. The next day, my parents, terrified by my condition, called a shaman. The shaman arrived with an air of urgency and began performing rituals to cleanse me of the malevolent spirit. He told us that the spirit had been drawn to my singing, captivated by the beauty of my voice. It wanted to steal my soul, believing it could gain my talent and energy. To protect me, the shaman suggested changing my name. He explained that by adopting a new name, the spirit would no longer recognize me and would lose interest. I agreed, desperate for anything that could save me from this torment. My old name, which had brought me fame, was left behind as I took on a new identity. With the shaman's help, my condition gradually improved, but the fear of the spirit's return never truly left me. I knew I had to leave the village to ensure my safety. My family and I packed up and moved far away, leaving the fame and the dark memories behind. The village that once celebrated my voice now seemed like a distant nightmare. As the years passed, I lived a quiet life, far removed from the world of singing. I never spoke of the horrors I had faced, choosing instead to focus on the simple joys of everyday life. The twisted face and the dark figure became a distant memory, though the fear remained. Now, as an old man, I look back on those days with a mixture of sadness and relief. I no longer sing, and I no longer feel the presence of that malevolent spirit. My new life, though far from the fame I once knew, has been peaceful and free from the terror that once haunted me. The spirit that once craved my voice never found me again, and for that, I am grateful. I share my story now as a cautionary tale, hoping that others might learn from my experience. Fame can be a double-edged sword, bringing both admiration and danger. I have lived through the nightmare of having my talent turned against me, and I hope my story serves as a warning to those who seek the spotlight without understanding the darkness that might follow. In the end, it is not the fame or the acclaim that defines us, but the peace we find in our own lives. I am at peace now, and though the memories of that twisted face still haunt me occasionally, I have found solace in my new identity and the quiet life I lead. I always loved to sing. From the moment I woke up in the morning until I fell asleep at night, I would sing everywhere I went. My voice was my joy, and I didn't mind that my neighbors heard it every day. I even sang when I walked to the farm to tend to my crops. One day, as I was singing while working in the fields, I noticed something strange. The air around me felt different, colder. I brushed it off, thinking it was just a chill from the wind. But then, I started feeling eyes on me. I glanced around, but there was no one there. I shrugged and kept singing, trying to ignore the feeling. That night, I had a vivid dream. In the dream, a group of eerie-looking people stood in a circle around a flickering fire in a faraway village. Their eyes were dark, and their faces seemed to glow with an unsettling light. They beckoned me with twisted smiles, urging me to sing for them. Despite feeling a shiver of fear, I couldn't help but sing, my voice echoing eerily through the night. When I woke up, I felt strange. My throat was sore and my body ached. I tried to shake it off, thinking it was just a cold. But as days passed, I felt worse. My singing voice became raspy and weak. It was as if my spirit was drained, and no matter how much I tried to sing, the joy was gone. I started to worry, especially when the farm seemed to change. The crops weren't growing as they should, and animals became restless. I couldn't understand what was happening. My friends and family noticed my change and tried to comfort me, but nothing seemed to help. One evening, while I was walking home from the farm, I saw shadowy figures standing among the trees. They looked just like the people from my dream. My heart pounded in my chest and I hurried home, but the figures vanished before I could get a good look. That night, I had another dream. The same people from the village appeared, but this time they were more menacing. They surrounded me and demanded that I sing for them once more. Their voices were harsh and cold, and their eyes seemed to pierce through me. I woke up sweating and terrified. I went to a local healer, hoping for some relief. She listened carefully, and then told me that the spirits were drawn to my voice. They wanted to use it for their own purposes. She advised me to stop singing and to perform a ritual to protect myself. I followed her instructions, though it was difficult to stop singing. It felt like losing a part of myself. I performed the ritual as best as I could, hoping it would drive the spirits away. I was desperate for my health and peace of mind to return. The next few days were hard. I tried to rest and recover, but the shadows and strange feelings lingered. Sometimes I would hear whispers and see fleeting figures out of the corner of my eye. My voice gradually started to return, but it was never quite the same. I kept my distance from the farm and stayed away from places where I felt the spirits might be. Slowly, my health improved, and the dark presence seemed to fade. I sang quietly to myself, just enough to feel the comfort of my own voice without attracting any unwanted attention. The experience changed me. I became more cautious and aware of the spirits around me. My love for singing remained, but I learned to respect the power of my voice and the forces that might be drawn to it. Even though I continued to sing softly, I always remembered the chilling dreams and the haunted feeling of those days. It was a reminder that some things are best left untouched, and sometimes silence is safer than a song. So now, I sing in a way that brings me joy without inviting the shadows back into my life. And when I walk to the farm, I do so with a sense of respect for the unseen and a quiet melody in my heart. This happened in 1999, when I was still living in Thailand. It all started when my girlfriend Mia began seeing strange figures following her. She's an incredible singer, and it seemed like her talent was drawing more attention than she realized. Every night as she walked home from the farm after a long day, she would catch glimpses of someone in white clothes trailing behind her. The figures never got too close, but they were always there, lurking in the shadows. At first, Mia brushed it off as exhaustion, or maybe even her imagination playing tricks on her. But the feeling of being watched wouldn't go away. It grew stronger every night, and she became more and more frightened. I tried to comfort her, but it was clear that something sinister was happening. One evening, Mia had a big performance at a local festival. She was excited, but her unease had only grown with time. The stage was set, and the crowd was cheering as Mia began to sing. Her voice was beautiful, carrying a haunting melody that mesmerized everyone in the audience. But as she sang, she noticed something terrifying in the crowd. Among the faces clapping and cheering, there was one that stood out. It was a face twisted in a grotesque, deathly smile. The figure was wearing tattered white clothes, and its eyes were hollow, staring directly at Mia. She felt a cold shiver run down her spine, but she couldn't stop singing. As Mia continued, the figure seemed to come closer, its face growing clearer with each note she sang. The joy of her performance turned into a nightmare. The crowd around the ghastly figure continued to cheer, oblivious to the horror Mia was witnessing. She felt an icy grip on her heart, and her voice faltered. After the performance, Mia was exhausted and frightened. The figure in white wasn't gone. It had followed her back to the farm, and she could feel its presence more strongly than ever. That night, she was plagued by nightmares. The figure would appear in her dreams, its face growing more menacing with each passing moment. She woke up in a cold sweat, feeling weaker and more terrified than before. The following day, Mia became visibly ill. She was pale, with dark circles under her eyes, and she could barely get out of bed. The figure in white seemed to be feeding off her fear and her energy, growing more powerful with every passing hour. It was clear to me that something was seriously wrong. Desperate, I reached out to a local shaman. The shaman was a wise, elderly woman who was known for her deep knowledge of the spirit world. She agreed to help us and came to our home with various herbs and ritual items. She could sense the presence of the malevolent spirit immediately. The shaman performed a traditional ritual, chanting ancient Hmong prayers and burning sacred herbs. She explained that the spirit was drawn to Mia's beautiful voice, and it wanted to capture her spirit to enhance its own power. As the shaman worked, the atmosphere in the room grew heavy with the presence of the spirit. Mia lay in bed, trembling as the shaman performed the ritual. The figure in white tried to break through the protective barriers the shaman was creating. We could see its distorted face pressing against an invisible shield, trying to reach Mia. The shaman's chants grew louder and more urgent, and the room was filled with the smell of burning herbs. After what felt like hours, the shaman finally finished the ritual. She was exhausted, but she had managed to drive the spirit away. Mia slowly began to recover, her color returning and her strength coming back. The figure in white was gone, and the oppressive presence that had been hanging over us vanished. Mia was deeply grateful to the shaman, and we made sure to honor her with gifts for her help. We were relieved to have our lives return to normal, but the experience left a lasting mark on us. Mia's voice was still beautiful, but she sang with a new understanding of the darkness that could lurk behind a seemingly innocent talent. To this day, when Mia performs, she does so with a quiet confidence, knowing that her voice is a gift, but also one that needs to be protected. We learned that sometimes the most wonderful talents can attract the darkest of spirits, and it's up to us to safeguard ourselves against them.